Lots been going on this week. I have some good news to report. This week was one of the key cutoff periods within the legislative session calendar here at the state capitol, and we've been able to kill a number of bad bills. And so while it's always hard to sort of brag about defensive wins because it's things we stop from happening, I think a few of these are worth noting. Uh, Probably the first on the list, and of a great amount of interest to lots of constitutional conservatives around Washington, was we killed Senate Bill 5098, which was one of the two critical uh, goals and priorities of the anti-gun rights left. Here in Washington, of course, the main vocal anti-gun rights group, special interest group, is called the Alliance for Gun Responsibility, AGR. And they're funded by a bunch of limousine liberals, but particularly one trust fund brat called Nick Hanauer, who's a big shot in kind of left-wing circles here in Washington State. They made a top priority of the Senate Bill 5098, which would restrict or add to the list of restricted places where people can open carry. Washington is, of course, an open carry state, unless the law says different. You can openly carry a firearm on your hip or elsewhere on your person, and that's legal. The default position here in Washington is open carry is legal. But there are some places you can't open carry. The Capitol is one, a courthouse is another. And this 5098 was designed to add to that list of places where you can't open carry. And we fought hard against it. We used a lot of our kind of parliamentary tricks and our parliamentary tactics and strategies to try to stop it, as we do with many of the anti-gun bills and many of the tax bills. We played our cards particularly well this time, and we were successful in stopping Senate Bill 5098. It died. It will not become law this session anyway, not this year. So that was a good win for gun rights, which are, of course, protected not only under the Second Amendment to the federal Constitution, but Article 1, Section 24 of the state Constitution. We were also able to stop in its tracks another Senate Bill 5068, 5068. That one would have allowed statewide non-citizens to be hired as law enforcement officers or county prosecutors or other first responders. This proposal gained a lot of controversy, became highly controversial, because a lot of people believe that we should not be making non-citizens law enforcement officers or prosecutors. They don't like the idea of a non-citizen being in a position to arrest and detain a citizen here in Washington. It was controversial. Some Republicans supported it, although I did not and most did not. But we were able to stop it dead in its tracks. It will not become law. And there were a couple of others too. There was one that was troubling, again, a state Senate bill that would have essentially ended juvenile hall, any kind of juvenile rehabilitation, any kind of prison or juvenile hall punishment for minors and juveniles who committed crimes, including violent crimes, rape, murder, the worst crimes. It would have essentially put them back into the community automatically. We were able to stop that bill too. That was an important defensive win. And as I've mentioned before, when we're in the minority and we're trying to get these defensive wins where we stop bad bills from passing into law, it's a little bit like, if you follow ice hockey at all, a power play where you're on the short end, where you have fewer players on the ice than the other team has. So you're working out of a disadvantage, but there are strategies that you can use to try to even the playing field, even when you're working out of the minority, as we are here at the state capitol. Some of these strategies have to do with using amendments. As a legislator, I put a lot of amendments on bad bills that come through the legislature. That slows them down because every amendment has to be considered when it's attached to a bill. And there are other things we do using the committee review process and the floor debate process to stop bad bills. All of this is going to be coming to a bigger level of importance in the next few weeks, as here in Olympia, we begin to debate in earnest the budgets. Remember, 3 budgets in the state government, operating, by far the largest, transportation, and capital construction, 3 budgets. Those have had kind of their preliminary votes, but there's very much a complicated process of passing those 3 budgets. That's coming to a point, and then the various tax proposals that the progressive left is putting forward to raise taxes, property taxes, sales taxes, the business tax, B&O tax here in Washington State, payroll tax, a bunch of small taxes, so-called small, on filing a lawsuit, the fees you have to pay to do that, on getting a hunting or fishing license, the fees you have to do that. They're just running all these tax and fee increases. So we're going to have to use our same kind of parliamentary jujitsu to try to knock down some of those bad tax increases. As we've been saying all along, and say consistently, we do not believe, we as Republicans do not believe that any tax increases are necessary here in Washington State. We think if we hold the budgetary spending where it is at its current levels and don't increase it at all, just hold it steady, we can balance our budgets without any new taxes, and here's the critical part, without cutting any services or functions of government. If we just hold steady, we can hold steady. That's the point that we as Republicans are making here right now. And I want to finish this update with a last thought about some of the things going on back east in DC. As I've mentioned before, some of the talking points that the radical left is making about what President Trump is doing in DC are already beginning to disintegrate. Their attacks and their criticisms on him are just not getting traction and not holding up. We've seen it particularly with their sort of emotional response to Trump's use of tariffs. Trump has been very strategic and tactical in using tariffs, and he's using them as a mechanism to get some of our international trading partners to negotiate more fair, more even playing field agreements with the United States. And even though the Democrats and the progressive left have been attacking Trump for doing this, as the days and weeks have gone by, it's evident that his approach is working. He is being able to negotiate better trade arrangements with other countries, our trading partners, in a way that makes the playing field more level, and Americans aren't getting stuck with tariffs from Vietnam or China or other countries without any kind of back and forth. Trump is affecting a more dynamic and open-ended negotiation with these trading partners. We're also seeing it with some of the attacks on DOGE. And the efforts at the federal level to add more government efficiency by cutting the fat out of the bureaucracies without cutting the actual services and goods that those government agencies deliver to people. And I think even though they're getting criticized in the mainstream media and by leftists, you're seeing that DOGE is wildly popular among the people, because I think they sense that by getting rid of the fat, we're actually protecting the benefits and services that government agencies offer. That's the reason that about a week ago, I filed the House Bill 2076 here at the Capitol in Olympia that will create the WADOGE, the Washington Department of Government Efficiency. And this bill, this proposal, is actually more complete even than the federal version of DOGE. It actually gives the WADOGE agency a budgetary control mechanism where they can control up to 6% of the state agency's budgets and hold that 6% against the state agencies undergoing internal audits, WADOGE audits, and basically open review of how efficiently they operate. This is a more effective tool for enforcing better government efficiency on the part of our bureaucratic agencies, even than the federal program. Of course, at the federal level, DOGE is only advisory. The DOJ agency doesn't do anything. They don't lay off anyone. They don't cut any budget. They only make recommendations to the White House that the president then can act on. In the WADOJ model, the agency has a little more ability to actually affect reform and change in our state bureaucratic agencies. The point is, we're not giving up on better transparency, better accountability, and better overall efficiency in our government agencies, both at the state and federal level. And the people of Washington and the United States like that. We're going to continue this process. That's it for this week. It's been a good week, somewhat inside baseball maybe, but it's been an effective week for us, we the conservatives and the Republicans here at the Capitol, and it's been a pretty good week back in DC. I'll update you again next week, but until then, be well, stay strong, and enjoy this beautiful state.